All right, section 5.3. Now we have to talk about dishonored checks, and we're going to learn how to journalize some electronic banking items. A dishonored check is going to be a check that a bank refuses to pay. There's several reasons why a bank could decide not to pay. Insufficient funds for the check, which means the person that wrote the check does not have enough money to actually pay for the check. If the check appears to be altered. If the signature of the person who signed the check does not match the one that's on the signature card at the bank. If the amounts written in the figures, the numbers, do not match the words that were written on the check. Check is post-dated. Now, we didn't go over post-dated, but it's in this chapter. Post-dated is a check written, but it has a future date. So if I wrote a check today, which is March 1st, and I dated the check like March 14th, well, that check is not actually good until March 14th. That's a post-dated check. So the bank's not going to honor a post-dated check. Okay, the steps that we are going to go over or actually do is page 129. And we're going to have to record a dishonored check on a check stub. And we're also going to have to journalize that check. Alright, our workbook does not have us actually doing the check stub, but if you look on page 129, the little blue box, you can see that you would write this in other, and you would write in dishonored check and the amount of the check, and you would write it in, and this for this example in the book is 105, and a dishonored check is going to be subtracted from your checking account, because what originally happened was you took that 105 check from your customer and you deposited it to your checking account, so you added to your checkbook balance. Now the bank has decided that that is a dishonored check, they did not honor it, so you're going to have to subtract that check amount back out of your checking account and any fee that the bank may have charged you. So that is what page 129 gives us an example of. But what our workbook is wanting us to do is actually just journalize these. So on the first one, March 15th, you received notice from the bank that there's a dishonored check. The check is from Chris Icola. It's $63 plus the bank is charging a $10 fee. So the total is $73. So your date is going to be the 15th. And the way that you're going to journalize that is you're going to have to put this amount back on your accounts receivable. Chris had originally paid you, but the check did not go through. So now you have to put it back to accounts receivable, Chris Icola. And that document number now is a memo, and this one is 121. And since we're now increasing accounts receivable again for Chris, it is now $63 plus the $10 service charge, so he now owes you $73. And since we are now having to subtract it from our cash account, it's going to be a credit of $73. Those steps that we just went over are on page 130. And up at the top of page 130 is an example, and of course on page 130 you have your T accounts. Alright, the next thing that we're going to go over is an electronic funds transfer, an EFT. Computerized cash payment system that transfer our funds without the use of checks. Okay, so it's going to work the same way. We paid cash on account to Spinoza Enterprises, $135 using electronic funds transfer, and the memo is 122. So the date is the 16th. We made a payment to one of our vendors, so that's going to be an accounts payable, and specifically Spinoza. Again, it's a memo, and this one is 122. And we reduce our accounts payable by a debit, so that's 135. Okay, electronic funds transfer is still coming out of our cash account, and we still reduce cash with a credit of 135. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is a debit card purchase, and that's on page 132. A debit card is a bank card that automatically deducts the amount of a purchase from the checking account. Okay, so this one is on the 17th. We purchase supplies, so this will be our supplies account, and it's going to be another memo as our source document, and this one is 123. and our supplies increased, so that's going to be a debit to supplies. And we used a debit card, but that still affected our cash. So we have to reduce our cash by $31 with a credit. Okay, so that's how we record dishonored checks, electronic funds transfers, and debit card purchases.